For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I move to suspend the rules in concurrence to Senate Amendment to H.R. 7077, the Empowering the U.S. Fire Administration Act.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 7077, an act to require the United States Fire Administration to conduct on-site investigations of major fires and for other purposes. Senate amendment.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Beyer, and the gentlewoman from Oklahoma, Ms. Bice, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Virginia.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and to exclude extraneous material in H.R. 7077,
Without
the bill
objection.
now under consideration. Thank you. Madam Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I rise today in strong support of H.R. 7077, the Empowering the U.S. Fire Administration Act. Although significant progress has been made in preventing major fires over the past 25 years, building fires in the United States remain a serious problem. According to the U.S. Fire Administration, there were an estimated 372,000 residential building fires within the United States in 2020. These fires caused an estimated 2,615 deaths, 11,825 injuries, and $8.6 billion in property loss. It is very timely that we're about to enact this bill as winter approaches and residential building fires are more likely to occur. It's essential that we learn from major fires to inform and improve future fire prevention efforts. The U.S. Fire Administration is an essential part of these efforts. Unfortunately, the agency currently lacks the authority to participate in post-fire on-site investigations. H.R. 7077 addresses this gap by authorizing USFA to send their own experts to the site of a major fire to conduct an on-site investigation in coordination and cooperation with federal, state, local, and tribal and territorial authorities. In doing so, this bill more fully leverages the unique expertise of the U.S. Fire Administration to help strengthen fire prevention. This bill would also require the administrator to issue a public report on the findings of an investigation or collaborate with another investigating agency on their report. This report would include recommendations on improving tactical response and civilian safety practices, as well as on approaches to mitigation. These reports are an essential component of ensuring that everyone can utilize the knowledge that we collect from major fires to improve future prevention efforts. I want to thank my friend and colleague, Representative Richard Torres, for his leadership on this bill. Representative Torres introduced this bill after a major residential building fire in his district on January 9th of this year, resulted in the tragic deaths of 17 people, including 8 children. I'd also like to thank my colleagues on the Science Committee, Representatives Haley Stevens, Anthony Gonzalez, and Peter Meyer, for their leadership on this bill. I urge all of my colleagues to join us in passing this bill. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. For what purpose? The gentlewoman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the Senate amendment to H.R. 7077, the Empowering the U.S. Fire Administration Act. This bipartisan legislation would give the U.S. Fire Administration the authority to send specialists to assist local firefighter investigators in on-site investigations in major fires. According to the National Fire Protection Association, last year had the highest number of home fire deaths in 14 years. As was mentioned, families in Rep. Torres's district know the devastation of major fires after suffering through New York City's deadliest fire in over 3 decades. This single fire claimed the lives of 17 residents, including 8 children. By empowering the U.S. Fire Administration to partner with local fire departments, we can better determine the root cause of these tragedies and make sure that they never happen again. The U.S. Fire Administration is housed within FEMA, and it has valuable and life-saving resources on preventing, responding to, and investigating fires. This bill would ensure that state and local governments can access their expertise and hopefully prevent major fires in the future. The bill directs incident investigators to examine the determined cause of origins of fires. It also requires them to assess broader systemic matters, including the use of codes and standards, demographics, structural characteristics, smoke and fire dynamics, costs, and associated injuries and deaths. Additionally, the bill also requires the U.S. Fire Administration to issue a report in coordination with federal, state, and local authorities on their findings, and to provide recommendations to federal, state, and local officials to implement to prevent similar fires from occurring in the future. This bill passed the House with overwhelming bipartisan support in May of this year. The Senate amendment added language to ensure that the U.S. Fire Administration would not affect or diminish the authorities of other federal agencies when investigating major fires, and would not grant the administrator authority to investigate a major fire for the purpose of an enforcement action or criminal prosecution. This bill incorporates stakeholder and agency feedback and is endorsed by the Fire Department of New York, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, the International Association of Firefighters, the National Association of State Fire Marshals, and the National Fire Protection Association. I want to thank Rep. Torres for introducing and leading the original bill, as well as the original co-sponsors from our committee, Representatives Stevens, Meyer, and Gonzalez. I also want to thank Senator Peters for his work on the Senate amendment. I urge my colleagues to support the amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman from Oklahoma reserves. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I have no more speakers at this time and I'm ready to close.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise again in support of the Senate amendment to H.R. 7077, the Empowering the U.S. Fire Administration Act. As I previously mentioned, the U.S. Fire Administration has valuable and life-saving resources in preventing, responding to, and investigating fires. The amendment would ensure that state and local governments have access to the resources and that the U.S. Fire Administration has the authority needed to conduct on-site investigations of major fires without diminishing the authorities of other federal agencies or negatively affecting ongoing or potential criminal investigations. We cannot afford to let any more tragic and preventable fires like the one in Rep. Torres' district happen in the future. I urge my colleagues to support the amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman yields. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank Representative Bice for joining me in presenting this bill today. And I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 77, and I, too, yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and concur in the Senate amendment to H.R. 7077? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative. For what purpose does the gentleman from Montana seek recognition?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I request the yeas and nays, please.